Hi everyone. In today's discussion, we are going to see how to build data flows in OAS. So data flow is nothing but a micro ETL functionality that has been embedded in the product, using which you can basically mash up the data, combine multiple data sets, and do micro ETL kind of features. Like even in any ETL tool, what you do is you take the data from different sources, do the data mashing, and you basically transform the data that acts as your data warehousing modeling setup. So all those complex features may not be there in the product today, but certainly it gives you many critical and important features that you can leverage. One thing you have to notice when you use this micro ETL functionality, you have to be very careful about the data volume, because if the data volume is huge, then either the performance will be poor or the data flow functionality might not work beyond certain extent. So data volume is something that you have to be really careful about. Let's go to data. Data flows is where you build those data flows. Let me create, and I'm selecting data flow as an option. What it asks you is what data set you want to use. So I'm going to use the same termination work details which we have used in previous videos. So this act as your input. Now, if you see here, it gives you all the columns that are there in your spreadsheet or in your data set. You have a choice here whether you want to carry forward all the columns or you want to eliminate some of the columns. You can eliminate by unchecking the box here itself, or you have an option to select column. So if you add this step, it gives you the same feature where you can select only the required columns and carry those forward. Okay, so let me try this. And what I will do is whatever you see on the right hand side are selected. So if I want to eliminate, let's say I don't want job ID. So I have clicked on it. So job ID has gone to the left hand side. That means it will not be carry forward. And if you see the output that is there at the bottom, you will not see job ID at all. After job ID, there was job level code. So job ID is now eliminated. So the next step is, let's say you want to filter some data. So let me just filter some data here. And I want to filter on, let's say, state. Okay. I want to filter and load only data for California, Florida, and New Jersey. So this is just one example. You can do filter on any of the column, or you can create your custom filter also. Once it is done, let's see what we can do. So there are various options here that you can do. You can rename the columns, you can transform the columns using some calculation. Even in add columns, you can create certain custom columns. For example, if you just have a date column in your data set and you want to load year based on it, so what you can do is you can add column, you can create a custom calculation which extract the year out of that date, and then you can load the data. So here I'm just simply clicking on the save data. Now it tells me whether you want to save this data as a data set or you want to load it in a database. So for this demo purpose, I'm going to rename this data set as sample data set, and I'm going to store it in a database. So I'm selecting database connection. It is saying, okay, which connection? So now because I have already created a connection for my local database, I'm selecting local host. But if you want to load it in any other database, ensure that the connection is set up. Okay, so what, see, it is giving me some error that the table name is invalid. Okay, so table name, let me give dummy, or let me rename TBL underscore dummy. Okay, then you have an option whether you want to always overwrite the data or you want to add the data like in an incremental mode. So let me say, because the table is not there in the database today, I'm just selecting replace existing data. And when you select add a new data to existing data, ensure that the database table is already created in the database. So now because I'm giving it, because I'm selecting this table and selecting replace existing data, let me share my screen and let me check whether this data is there or not. Okay, so select star from. Okay, it says table or view does not exist. So now this is done. Let me save this data set and this data flow df underscore sample. Okay. Okay, my data flow was saved successfully. Now what I need to do, I need to run this data set for all the data to be loaded in this TBL underscore dummy table. So let me run this data flow. Because the data volume we have is not huge, ideally this should not take much time. So I'm just stopping this video till this data flow gets over. Okay, so as you can see now, my data flow is complete and it hardly took 2 to 3 seconds after I stopped the video. So now see whether the data is loaded or not and whether the table is created or not. Okay, so as you can see now my table TBL underscore dummy is created by the data flow and the data is loaded. So this is one quick way of creating the data flow using the inbuilt feature of OAS. There are a lot of other options that you can try. I have created a very simple data flow just for the understanding purpose. But here also there is a way of creating predictive analytics. So for example, if I click on this node here, because right now I'm not doing any predictive analytics, so all these options are disabled. But given the right data set and the way you create or build your data flow, these options get enabled and you can use these predictive analytics model in your data flow also to do forecasting. This is something that I will cover in my subsequent videos, so stay tuned for it. I hope you enjoyed this small session on how to build data flow. Before I close this session, another quick thing I wanted to cover is the sequences. So what sequences do is, let's say you have created 5 data flows and you want to run them one by one. How will you do it? Instead of running them one by one manually, sequences is something that will help you in automating it. So let me create a small sequence here for you. And if you see here, when I try to create a new sequence, it tells you what all data flows I have created. Now let's say there are 5 data flows and I want to run them one by one. I'll just double click on it, or I will just drag it here. So I'm just dragging it and it is setting up the sequence automatically. And this is how you can basically run all these data flows in sequence instead of going to data flow tab and running each one manually. If you create a sequence and run the sequence, you need to click the run button only once. What it will do is it will run all these data flows one by one. This is a great way if you want to build a very small data model wherein you have one fact and 2 dimensions, and you just need to run 2 dimensions first which are independent of each other, and one fact that need to be loaded after the dimensions are loaded. And provided the data volume is not huge. So in such a scenario, this is a very good way of leveraging this micro ETL functionality and building the data model. I hope you have enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, drop them in the comment section. Thank you so much.